What's going on? It's me, Haley Jones, and today we are talking about Hardin Valley versus Farragut. This is all anecdotal. If you want to see a data deep dive, if you want to see maps of what exactly I'm talking about, if you want all the numbers, then go watch the data deep dive video. This video is anecdotal. I'm going to have some numbers in here, but it's really more of a commentary as a Knoxville native person. When we talk about Hardin Valley versus Farragut, what exactly are we saying? So let's dive in and get going. All right. So again, just want to tell you, if you want all the data, go watch the data deep dive video. I am going to pull some numbers here, but for the most part, this is kind of what they have in common, and then how are they different. So that's the main thing we're going to talk about when we talk Hardin Valley versus the Farragut areas. I also want to say that this shirt is on purpose. If you watch the data deep dive video, I explain this as well. Farragut is the admirals. They are boaters. Their thing is an anchor. Well, this shirt feels like I could go on a boat. I could go on a yacht. It could be a bathing suit cover up. So I wore that for that purpose. But Hardin Valley, their colors, their mascot is a hawk, but their colors are like a blue silver situation. So this is blue and white. So it's kind of on brand. Like I could walk into Hardin Valley and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. And I could walk into Farragut and they'd be like, that's a boating shirt. So shout out to you, Farragut and Hardin Valley. Obviously, I'm talking about the high schools. You get it. Okay. Now, the other disclaimer I want to tell you is actually I have two disclaimers. Disclaimer number one is, as a Knoxville native person, if I were to say what's the difference between Farragut and Hardin Valley, or if I use language like Hardin Valley versus Farragut, many Knoxville native people would be like, that's not a thing. It's not a thing. And you're going to see why in a minute. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to also acknowledge that Hardin Valley, well, we're going to get into it. It's not really a thing. Okay. And then the second thing I'm going to tell you, and the only time, and I showed this also on the data deep dive, but the only time I'm going to kind of get into the weeds a little bit is I want to show you what I mean when I say Farragut and Hardin Valley when it comes to location. So let's jump into the map and I'm going to show you that. So let's just look at the maps for a second. So when I'm saying Farragut and Hardin Valley, I'm specifically talking about two zip codes. I am talking about 37932 for Hardin Valley. I'm talking about 37934 for Farragut. But Haley, this is part of Farragut. Technically, yes. If you're from here, you're like, yeah, that's Chodo. We would consider that Farragut. I consider all of this Farragut, but for the purposes of ease and data, and just it being very solidly clear, we're talking about 37932 and 37934. Now, if you're like, well, how does that compare to a school zone? Well, if we look at the Hardin Valley school zone, we can see here is 37934. And we can see that the Hardin Valley school zone bleeds into 37923, which is Cedar Bluff, and a little bit into Karnes 37931. Okay. So when we're saying Hardin Valley versus the Hardin Valley Academy, there's a little bit different zoning when we compare zip code to high school zone. Now, when I'm talking about school zoning, this school map zone is specifically high schools. So I just want to also say that. Now, when it comes to Farragut, there's the town of Farragut, and then there's like the Farragut area. So here's Pellissippi. Pellissippi runs north to south. It's called 140. Technically, we call it Pellissippi, but I just want to tell you that as I cross over from, like, this is Kingston Pike. As I cross from Kingston Pike under Pellissippi, then I'm in Farragut. I'm just in Farragut. Okay. So, but technically it's 37922. This you would consider Farragut. This is Concord. This is Chodo, blah, blah, blah. So if we look at Farragut zoning, however, this right here is all Bearden High School. Even though, and like this over here goes to Farragut. So yes, there's some discrepancy, but for the sake of clarity, we are talking about these two zip codes, 37932 and 37934, because otherwise then I'm going to be talking about a tiny section of Cedar Bluff and a tiny section of Karnes and a tiny section of Concord. And part of that's Bearden, and it's confusing. So we're just using these two zip codes. Okay. Okay. Those are my disclaimers. So now let's get into what do the two areas have in common? A couple things they have in common. Both of them are within Knox County. And both of them, some of them, for example, in Farragut, you would have a Knoxville address, and some of them you would mail something to Farragut. In Hardin Valley, they're all going to be a Knoxville address. It's not going to say Hardin Valley. Hardin Valley is not an incorporated. We're going to get to that in the differences, but both of them are part of Knox County. Both of them are outside of the Knoxville city limits, which means both of them have county only taxes. So you do not have city trash service. You do not have city police department. So you do not have like the city EMS. You pay for a rural metro membership. So those are things that they have in common when it comes to they're both part of Knox County. Another thing that they have in common is they are both in West Knoxville. So if we look at where they are comparatively to downtown Knoxville and we say West Knoxville, they are as far west as you can go in Knox County before you are cross into a different county, or north of Hardin Valley, you've got Anderson County, Roane County. If we go further west, we're in Loudoun County. So they're pretty much as far west as you can go in Knox County. So they are certainly both a part of West Knoxville. Both of them have the largest high school populations within Knox County schools. So both of them are serviced by Knox County Schools, which is a public school system that serves about 60,000 students in Knox County. That includes Knoxville, the city of Knoxville, and all of Knox County. So essentially, both of them are serviced by that, but they also both are home to Knox County's largest high schools, with Hardin Valley being about 2,100 students and Farragut being very similar, about 2,096. So they're both about 2,100 students. They're both large. Now, by comparison, I mentioned this in the data deep dive, for like a Miami-Dade County school system, that's like saying that's half or a fifth, or I don't even know. Their schools are huge, okay? I have a friend, she's an admin in West Palm Beach, and the school size that she talks about, I'm like, I don't even understand how that's a thing. That being said, for Knox County, both of them are large. So that's kind of, to me, the things they have most similar. Now let's talk about how are they different. The easiest way to say this is Farragut is old and Hardin Valley is new. Farragut, it has roots back into the 1800s. Now, I'm sure there were people living in the Hardin Valley area in the 1800s, but it's not, there was, Farragut has history, Farragut has a Civil War history. It's got all kinds of history. Hardin Valley doesn't really have that. The other thing is Farragut was incorporated in 1980. I am from Knoxville. We moved to Knoxville when I was 2 years old in 1987. I graduated from West High School in 2003. When I graduated from West High School in 2003, Hardin Valley was not a thing. And you can go watch on the Data Deep Dive, and I explained to you, we did not go there. We went there for AYSO soccer practice and to go to the Pellissippi State Community College for an event or whatever. But other than that, Hardin Valley did not exist. There was no Hardin Valley Academy. There was no groceries. I mean, it just was not a thing. It was not an area. So that's the biggest difference, is Farragut is just much more established. There's much more to do there. If you look at the Data Deep Dive video, I talk about what's the shopping difference? What is the hospital difference? And the main thing is, in Hardin Valley, there is one grocery store, and it's Food City. If you go into Farragut, you have Earth Fare, Fresh Market, Super Walmart, Super Target, the Costco is there. I mean, I could continue to go on, Ingles. So it's just, they're completely different things when it comes to what they provide. Now, when it comes to new construction, that's another difference. And I talked about this in the Data Deep Dive, new construction in Farragut accounted for about 15% of home sales for the zip code in 2024. However, new construction in Hardin Valley accounted for 42% of all transactions in 2024. So there is a lot more room for new construction, for new housing in Hardin Valley as compared to Farragut. Farragut is full. The population density of them are very different. The population density of Farragut is almost 3 times the population density of what you see in Hardin Valley. So, they're just completely different. Even though Farragut, you're talking about 16 square miles, whereas Hardin Valley, you're talking about 28 square miles. The population density in Farragut is about 1,570 something people, 1,500 people per square mile, whereas in Hardin Valley, it's about 670 people per square mile. So the population density is completely different. It's a whole other vibe. And to me, when I think of Hardin Valley, I think there's schools there and there's residential. Now, you do have some growing restaurant chains, like they've got a Chick-fil-A now. That's a big thing. They got a coffee shop called Tanago and it's amazing. But, like I said, in Farragut, you've got boutique restaurants, you've got chain restaurants, you've got the freaking Costco, all of Knox County. Where's the Costco? It's in Farragut. Okay, so that should tell you what you need to know about Farragut in general. It's just completely different. And then when it comes to driving, it's kind of interesting because to me, when I think of Hardin Valley, I think one road. You've got one road that kind of runs parallel to I-40, and that is Hardin Valley itself. Now, you do have some other kind of one-offs there, but for the most part, you've got kind of, if we're talking about getting off Pellissippi and going to the Hardin Valley schools, you've got Hardin Valley that runs straight through, and that's it. And that's accommodating all that new construction. I'm going to leave that there for you. Okay. However, in Farragut, you've got Kingston Pike, Westland, North Shore, you've got I-40. So you have a lot more options when it comes to moving throughout the zip code than what is currently happening in Hardin Valley. My guess is that eventually Hardin Valley is going to have to be, they're going to have to add some roads. This just the one way in, one way out is what it feels like. I don't know if it's sustainable, but I'm also not a property or not a city planner. Take that all with a grain of salt. The other thing that I want to mention to you is the difference of home prices. So if we just look at what happened in 2024, average home price, when I pulled the data, let me just share this with you. I know I said I wasn't going to get into data, to make it so your eyes don't cross. So if we look at this home pricing, Farragut, we see for 2024, I pulled this data in November. Average home price year to date was $743,000. Hardin Valley was $543,000. So there is definitely a big discrepancy. Now, however, look at what happened in the market in Farragut. We saw pricing go up by almost 7%, whereas in Hardin Valley, we saw pricing come down almost 3%. So that is certainly a difference. Now, both of the hot markets, both of them are places where people are moving. Certainly, if we look at days on market for 2024, if we compare the two of them, so that's this number here, 9 days in Farragut, 11 days in Hardin Valley. So both of them have real estate transactions that are moving. And it's not as if either of them are a bad market. So I don't want you to take this like price depreciation as necessarily negative. Also bear in mind that if 42% of the market is new construction, we can bet that some of those new construction, especially given the rates, we saw some price reductions on that new construction. So take again, this kind of price depreciation with a giant grain of salt. So certainly Farragut we see is a higher price point. So that's where you're going to pay more for a house than you would pay in Hardin Valley. But in Hardin Valley, you have more opportunity for new construction. You've got a lot more builders building there. You've got a lot more diversity of builders. In Hardin Valley, you have builders from D.R. Horton, which is a value builder, all the way to nearly custom things like Saddlebrook, where you can almost customize anything. Whereas in Farragut, you've got Saddlebrook and you've got Goodall Homes. That's kind of the bigger box builders, but even Goodall Homes, you cannot customize anything. And those start around 700,000. Whereas a D.R. Horton is more in the threes, mid threes and up. So that's a huge price discrepancy when it comes to new construction options. You just have a lot more options when it comes to new construction in Hardin Valley. So anyhow, they're certainly very different. They're both West Knoxville. They both have schools. Niche.com gives Farragut High School an A. Niche.com gives Hardin Valley Academy, that's the high school, a B+. So, if you want to dive more into what's happening with the schools there, certainly go do that. But both of them are established West Knox areas. When I think Farragut, I think there's more stuff to do. There's more shopping. When I think Hardin Valley, I think more residential. I think more rural. I think more opportunity to buy a piece of property and build at a more feasible price point. So those are just some things to think about when it comes to Hardin Valley versus Farragut. So that being said, I hope this has been helpful. As always, if you want to get deep into the data, if you want to go through line by line with a spreadsheet, then go watch the data deep dive. As always, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your questions. I do have some driving tours through Farragut, down Kingston Pike. I have a whole West Knox video. So go check that out if you want to see that stuff. And as always, if there's something that you want me to make a video on or you're curious about, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, and just let me know, because I want to create content that is helpful for you. So that being said, if you find this helpful, I would love your feedback. Always hit subscribe. I've got so much more to tell you. I'm Haley Jones from Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'll see you next time.